In this video, we're going to start working with the UI designer. So I'm going to start a new Android project, empty activity. I'll call it UI examples. And my default location's fine. Language is Kotlin. Nougat and above is fine. Nothing really interesting there. Covered all that in an earlier video. So when we start up, again, what are all the different little parts of Android Studio? I kind of hit the highlights in a separate video. But as a reminder, the code is for your activity, and activity is a screen. Just think of it as the same thing for now. That is inside the Java org Otterbein UI examples, in my case, name of my project. By default, this is going to be already open if you create a new project, but if you do close it and want to get back to it, and resource layout, these are where all your layouts are, which are the screens for your activities. So you just double click it and it opens it up. I'm going to go ahead and hide the project window to give ourselves some more room. So this is what we get by default. So if I hit run, it will install and run. There we go. So we get pretty much what we see here. Everything's great. Okay. So let's see what we can, let's start adding some stuff. The first thing we want to do, like here where it says hello world, well, we don't really want hello world. This is just a placeholder. But it's maybe worth pausing for a moment to go take a look at what exactly is this. When you're designing this screen, right now it's a blank screen with some text in the middle that says hello world. How does Android Studio know to draw this on the screen? Right? Where does this come from? So if we come up here to the top, you'll see these three view modes. Design puts in a graphical design mode. But really what design is doing is it's taking the code and building that screen. The code is XML. So we can see here that in the middle of the screen there's something, or we can see there's a node in here called text view. This text view, and I'm going to put it in a split mode, which shows me both at the same time. This text view here is what defines this. So what we see is that it's got some layout. We'll talk about that in the future as needed. There's text, hello world, right? You can see. So most of this won't mean much to you, but you can see text view, hello world. Oh, that's the same thing. So that's all this is. Everything you do here just generates XML. For this course and for a lot of your development, you will just work in here and you'll probably, very rarely need to go look at the XML. However, sometimes you may find that you just can't get something quite right, something weird's going on, and sometimes it's worth jumping over here and looking at the text view, or sorry, the XML view of the code. And sometimes you can tweak this and make things easier. Also, if you spend a lot of time doing Android development, like you move on and go get a job and spend a couple years doing this, you will find yourself pretty frequently going over here and tweaking things simply because it's faster for you to do it here than try to mess around in the GUI. So anyway, so know that it's there. You probably won't need to look at it in this course, but in case you get stuck on something, it's worth a peek. So we'll go back to design mode. So there's really kind of three sections here of the designer when I'm in design mode. In the middle, we have two screens, which may seem kind of weird. Why do we have two? And it comes in pretty handy, actually, having these two views. So it's really the same screen, but this one is more like what it really looks like, and this is called a blueprint view. And the blueprint view kind of it removes a lot of the styles that are applied to things, and it's also going to be very handy in setting up constraints. And you'll see those here in a little bit. So just two different views of the same thing. This one gives you more of a real world. This is kind of what it's going to look like when you're actually running the app, versus the blueprint, which tells you here's how things are laid out. It's kind of a neat concept. It hasn't always worked this way, but once I got used to it, I certainly wouldn't want to go back to the old way. So to put things on the screen, actually before we put things, let's delete things. So we got hello world in the middle, right? That was just generated by Android Studio. You probably don't want a big old hello world in the middle of your app, so I can just click it and then hit delete, and it's gone. If I go back over to code, it's gone. So to add things to the screen, we can just simply come over here and pick, these are controls that we might want to add. Common, these are exactly what it means. These are the most common controls that you would see. And in fact, for Project 1, I'm not going to talk about it yet, but on Project 1, every control that you use, I think, is here in Common Controls. Every one I can think of right now, anyway. So for example, let's say we want to put some text on the screen, which is a very normal thing to do. We come over here and we grab a text view. So text view is just text on the screen. It's not text you can edit. This is just static text. A lot of times I think of them as labels. So it's just labels on the screen, something that we can change the text in our code, but the user can't like click in it and make changes to it. And you'll see it's a GUI designer. We can just kind of drag it around. You'll see sometimes, like there we go. If I put it in the right spot, it will give me these little highlight lines. You guys saw that? Right, saying, hey, here's in the middle. I come down here. See if I can hit there's a horizontal one too, but sometimes, oh, there we go. Actually, I'm hitting it now. You just probably can't see it very well. We'll talk about these lines in a little bit, right? But the point is you can kind of move this thing around wherever you would like. Okay, so it's text view. When you select a view, if I come over here, these are the properties for it. So you'll notice when I click the activity itself, that all changes. When I click the text view and highlight it, it changes. So these are the properties for this text view. There are a lot of properties. Most of these you will never care about, but sometimes you do. So I'm certainly not going to try to cover everything in these properties, but I'll hit the ones that you would actually use on a normal basis. So for text view, the main thing is text. As you can see by default, it says text view. But of course, that's probably not what we want to say. So maybe we want to say, hello class. We'll do 2 exclamation points. And there it goes. Scrolls out, hello class. So pretty nice. When you change this, the natural thing to ask is, well, there's another text right below it. But this one is got a little wrench, right? Wrench text, except for it's not. It's actually called tool text. So to understand what this does, first let me just go in here and make a change. So let's just put, what is this? And you'll see it updated to what is this? Oh, that's interesting, right? But what happened to hello class? Well, maybe because I changed this most recently, it uses whichever I used recent, right? So let's go up here and change it to hello class. Let's just put 1 exclamation point. Hit enter, nothing happened. Interesting, right? So let's go over here to code, and if I go over, you'll see here's hello class, Android text. Then down here's tools text. What is this? Remember a minute ago I said it's not called wrench text, it's called tools text. So this is kind of a neat little feature, and to really understand what it's going to do, I'm going to go ahead and run the app. So right now, notice it says, what is this? So when I run the app, give it a moment, it says hello class. All right, so what's going on? Okay, so what's going on here is when you have these little wrenches, this means that this property, you can change the property. So I can change the text property, but it's only used in design mode, as opposed to what is used in when the app is actually running. Now you may say, that's stupid. Why on earth would I ever want to do that? Well, actually, it comes up pretty regularly. So let me give you an example. And this won't be a great example, but let's say that this was on this screen, in this field, we displayed your username. Right? Let's say that's what we wanted to do. When I'm designing the app, I don't have any idea what your username is now, do I? So in the old days, I'm going to get rid of the tool text, so it'll default it back to hello class. In the old days, we might put a placeholder here. Because if I don't have any text here, it's hard to find right, on the graphics, right? All of a sudden, it's just a blank area, and you got to like click in the right spot if you want to select it and make changes to it. So we need to have a placeholder text in there. Plus, the placeholder helps us see how the screen's fitting together. The problem is when the app runs, let's say that the username we get from the server, and it takes maybe 2 seconds to go get the username. What that means is we don't want, when the screen first launches, we just want that to be blank. We wouldn't want it to say user text. So you'd have to remember in your code to go change it to blank until we get something back from the network and then update it with a real value. Or maybe it's some field that could be blank or could have a real value. The problem is in design mode, I want something to be there. So that's where the tool text comes in handy. So if I wanted at runtime this to be blank until I assigned it a value in code, then I might use a tool text. So this is one of those things that it may sound a little silly, but it is great. It's a really nice feature. I can't tell you how many times, for years and years before this existed, the norm was to put some kind of default text in here. And certainly there's been many, many, many bugs in applications because of the default text. So that's what that second one is. There's other stuff we can do. I just pick a couple of the more interesting ones. The font family, right? So you can change the font. So maybe if I want this to be cursive, right, why not? And maybe that's not big enough, 14, so let's make it 30. There we go. And then here, I'll make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. So this is a good example now you can really see the difference between the kind of the WYSIWYG version that you're going to see versus the blueprint, right? The blueprint kind of removes some of the style and just keeps it very architectural, whereas this view tries to give you something close to what the user's going to see. So I'll go ahead and run again, just to make sure we haven't broken anything. And look, it's gone. What happened? Let's go figure it out. So what we're going to do is start digging around and see, well, what happened to our username?